I liked the thought of it, of freeing myself. But I knew it couldn't happen. A book would require me to confront my past, which I was committed to not doing. Maybe someday I would feel differently, but not anytime soon. Then, a week later, everything changed. And Melody's words had stayed with me. You could tell everyone the full story, every little detail. My mind kept catching on that last clause, every little detail. I remembered so many. They flooded my mind, a kaleidoscope of sunbeams, of brown hair tossed, us blowing into our hands for warmth. Maybe Melody was right. Maybe it was time. I called her office and, for the first time ever, heard the voice of the woman who had plucked my manuscript from the slush pile all those years ago. I told Melody on that first phone call that I couldn't be the only one to tell this story. I'd lived inside it for far too long. Better to throw open the windows and tell it from every angle, for better or worse. Within these pages, you will read about what happened from my perspective, as well as from those whose stories collided with my own. And that is how we got here, to this book you now hold in your hands. My memoir. But more than that, it is a monument. Carved from a mass of bad decisions and selfishness and, it pains me to admit, cruelty. And yet, I want you to love me anyway. No use pretending otherwise. I'm done hiding who I am. My mind's long been divided on the question of my goodness, and now here you are, the deciding vote. I ask only that you read with an open heart. Annie Callahan, a.k.a. Cass Ford, a.k.a. Cate Kay. Chapter 1. Anne-Marie Callahan. 1991, Bolton Landing. My earliest memory is wearing my favorite shirt for an entire month of summer without my mom noticing. I was going into 4th grade, and my mom figured since I was now in the public school system, she could leave me alone if needed. There was even a socially acceptable term for it, a latchkey kid. We lived in an apartment building that was once a motel. The kitchen consisted of a toaster oven and microwave, and Mom worked cleaning rooms at the Chateau, this fancy resort on the shore of Lake George. This was upstate New York, very upstate, with a complicated mix of blue-collar locals and vacationing urban elite. My mom and I, as you've probably guessed, were the former. My mom had lots of formers. Former jobs, former friends, former boyfriends, a former husband who was also my dad but had never been anything of the kind. Apparently, he'd wanted to make her an honest woman, eye roll. But then a few months after I was born, decided he didn't want honesty that bad. The shirt, my Tom and Jerry shirt, was white with a cartoon graphic on the front. I loved it. It fit so perfectly that I forgot I was wearing it, which was all I wanted from clothing, for it to disappear. When I wore other shirts, I was always tugging and rearranging, but not this one. Plus, I was wearing it the day this story started, the day I caught the sickness of wanting to eat the world. It was a summer day, so hot, humid. I was bored, and movement combated the languor of those endless afternoons, so I flipped the kickstand on my bike and pedaled to town, which was overrun with vacationers, as I knew it would be. Even as a kid, I could spot city money. It was the way they held their car keys like they were a sexy prop, and how they tenderly touched the edges of their sunglasses. I'd sit on the bench outside the ice cream shop and watch. That afternoon, the sky was mostly a crisp blue with an occasional fluffy white cloud, like I imagine wallpaper of the sky would look. I was sitting on my bench when I looked up into an aqua sea. I visualized myself piercing through the blue, then through the ozone into outer space. Then I imagined piercing outer space into... what? The thought triggered a moment of pure derealization, that's what I might call it now, and my body filled with this odd sensation of the universe is all there is. There's nothing outside the universe. This wasn't a feeling of atheism. It wasn't about heaven. The closest descriptor is uncanny, if uncanny was on steroids.